How are business strategies developed? This video is really designed to give you a basic overview of the second assignment for business environment. As many of you have been taught within a lecture format, I thought the only fair thing to do would be to create a video to really explain what the different elements are of this unit are and what you should be looking at, especially in terms of the assessment. And this should give you a really good in-depth guide to what kind of business structures a business uses and what kind of issues there are. What I'm going to do is pose you some questions. I might split the video into a couple of sections simply because of the volume of them. So the first part, we're going to look at what is a strategy. We're going to look at how a strategy is developed, and also what are smart objectives which come from strategies, how are they developed, how are smart objectives used by businesses, why do public and private sector organisations have different objectives? So firstly, what is a strategy? Well, put simply, a Formula 1 team or a football team will have a strategy. And simply put, their strategy is to achieve a certain goal or an aim. It's exactly the same thing in business. So a football team like Arsenal will look at trying to win the Premier League. A Formula 1 team would look to win a race. All kinds of organisations have different strategies and objectives, but all a strategy is really is a method to achieve an objective. Okay. This can involve, as part of that process, is to develop a strategic plan. Now that can be the way you organise your business and the structure. So you might have to reorganise staff or structure, or it could also be looking at ways to actually develop efficient work practices to actually achieve an objective. But really a strategy is a method to achieve a strategic objective. Okay? It's just a way of doing it. It's a way of organising your business so you can do it. So really we need to think how a strategy is developed and what's involved. Now the thing that you'd have to do is try and research it. Now you do this using something quantitative. Now that could be a closed question. It could be, so for example, giving out lots of different receiving sales data. It could be something as simple as receiving, doing some market surveys where you're just literally doing tick box exercises. Those are all examples of quantitative data. Quantitative, you can tell, is different from qualitative, and I'll explain why. Quantitative is different simply because quantity is a number. It is basically looking at how much of something, how different. So that is statistical instances. So for example, anything like any information which is gained maybe from a closed questionnaire, for example, from sales data, from data like footfall, basically seeing how many people walk across the shop. That is quantitative data. That's one method which could be used. The other method that a business might use is qualitative. This can involve something like an interview, obviously that one there, but it's usually done something like a focus group or some way of actually triangulating, so asking how. So basically, how do you think about this product? What do you think of the direction that we're going in? Something like that is qualitative, okay? So it's qualitative, what's going on, how's it happening, how's it being developed? What is a smart... Now basically all this information goes into a big pot, and basically your quantitative and your qualitative will help inform your smart objectives. Now what that does is, the whole point of researching using quantitative and qualitative is to develop a smart objective. Now an objective is something, is an aim that you want to achieve within your plan. And it's usually, if you made a business plan, it would be the first thing you develop, really. So basically what we need to look at is actually, what does smart mean? Well, really it means specific. So the first section, yes, means specific. It's focused on something which is narrow enough to be achievable. Usually it's something very finite. So for example, the college wants to achieve an outstanding grade at the next Ofsted. Measurable, it could be measured either quantitative or qualitatively. So it could be the percentage of sales that are made. It could be something which could be like, for example, consistent growth, I think is one of the measures. It's something which could be measured, something that you could actually say, actually, have we achieved that objective, yes or no? On a personal level, it could be, for example, I could set the objective of achieving a distinction in a unit. Did you achieve it, yes or no? Achievable, it's usually got to be met within a time frame. It's also got to be quite fairly achievable within that period. Realistic, really what I'd think about is realistic. Is it realistic where the business is at the moment in terms of budget and in terms of time, and also in terms of where it is in the market? Obviously you have the odd example where a business jumps up a lot in market share, but the reality is most businesses don't grow like that. They grow over a longer period of time. Time driven, basically, does the objective have a specific end date? So does it have a point where it ends? Because all objectives need to be reviewed at certain points, and that's the point of this. So for example, in the public sector, you could look at something like SGS, as we talked on, to achieve outstanding status in our next Ofsted inspection in 2017. That's an example of a SMART objective. For example, the outstanding part is something very specific. By the next Ofsted inspection, it's quite realistic. It's also quite achievable because the college has achieved the good. It's realistic in the sense that the institution's already here. It already exists. It's measured because it's obviously measured by Ofsted. It's a yes or a no. It's time driven because of the 2017. That is a way that SGS makes a SMART objective. When it comes to the assignment, you might need to explain a different objective. To deliver consistent and profitable growth in the next financial. Now, for example, of private sector, they have different objectives as well. This is Coke. Their one is to deliver consistent and profitable growth in the next financial year. Although sometimes an objective doesn't have like a specific figure or a specific piece of data, it doesn't mean that it's not SMART. This is SMART for several reasons. To deliver consistent and profitable growth in the next financial year, well, you can measure that. It's very specific because it's looking at actually how much profit's going in, and it's also focused on growth. It's obviously measurable because you've got that idea of basically your financials, you're looking within the year. You're also looking if it's going to actually achieve growth. So you can look at percentages, how many bottles of Coke have been sold. You can also see if it's achievable because you can actually measure, has this happened or not. It's realistic, obviously, because Coke is a massive, massive company, and it's and it's trying to reach out to different areas and different segments. Obviously, it's time driven by the fact that it's saying it's within this financial year. What I would look for is basically you to do something very similar, and so you also pick up a private sector objective and say how is it different. Okay, so final part of this little section is why do public and private sector organisations have different objectives? Well, these are two different basic overviews, okay? Public sector objectives and private sector objectives. These are different examples of them. So, for example, public sector objectives for the college are going to be these kind of things, and private sector, this is for what happens in a private sector organisation. They are different. They are trying to meet different objectives because they are from different organisations and they have different stakeholders. So, for example, the college is accountable to the government. It is also accountable to the taxpayer and the people who put money into it. As a result, it has different objectives. It is not looking to achieve a profit, it's looking to achieve a surplus. That means it has, and the college is trying to achieve to provide a service. Because of these things, it's essentially trying to achieve a fundamentally different objective to a private sector organisation. A private sector organisation is looking at survival, growth, and ways to basically develop itself. It is accountable to its stakeholders, as in shareholders. It is looking to basically return profit to an owner, and that makes it different. A public sector organisation is less focused on profit, but more focused on basically making the organisation sustainable, making the organisation provide that service as efficiently and effectively as possible. That's why they're different, is because they're essentially trying to do something which is fundamentally different from each other. So to recap that once again, the private sector is looking to make a profit, public sector is looking to make a service. It's that simple. They're just accountable to different people, and that's the reason why they're different. There's the overview as well to that. So to achieve different outcomes, the ownership type is fundamentally different, which we talked about, and also stakeholders want something which is fundamentally different. What you'll need to do is try and bring that out quite strongly in an assignment.